When people come to visit the garden here in Jerusalem, they've come through a busy neighborhood full of the sights and sounds and smells of the crowds and the traffic. They come into this oasis of peace and then take a tour around the garden. And on that tour, they will see trees and plants and herbs and shrubs of many kinds. They'll see almond trees and vines. They'll see fig trees and olives. They'll see palm trees and pomegranates. And all of those trees speak of different stories in the Bible. But at the center point of the tour, they'll come into this olive grove. And in the olive grove, we sit people down and we talk about the story of some characters that appear throughout the Bible. Some of them only once or twice. We think of Nicodemus. We think of Joseph of Arimathea, whose tomb Jesus was laid in and whose garden this may once have been. We think of Mary Magdalene meeting the risen Christ in the garden. And that garden was almost certainly at that time a vineyard. But this garden now, a part of it, a portion of it, this central part, is actually an olive grove with olive trees ancient and new, which speak about another aspect of Jesus' ministry. Just less than a day before his crucifixion, on the late evening before, Jesus and his disciples are in another garden, another olive grove called Gethsemane, just about a mile from here. And in that garden of tears, Jesus fought within himself the battle that would determine whether he would go through with the Father's will, pressed by the thought of what was coming, oppressed by the thought that his own disciples, one of them is betraying him, and all the others would run away. And oppressed by the thought of what it would mean to take the sin of the world upon himself. And all that pressure coming on the Christ, pressing out of him tears that were like drops of blood pouring from his forehead. And this is the point of the tour where we sit and we reflect on some of those things. But you know, sometimes our life can be like the experience of the olive. Things press in. Things surround us and bear upon us, and we pour out sometimes groans because of what we're going through. And in those moments, sometimes we can be tempted to think, well, where's God in the midst of all this pressure? And we remember Christ, who underwent that pressure as he faced the crucifixion and the burial, and then the glorious resurrection, and then the ascension later on. The olive speaks of the goodness that is released through pressure. When the olive is crushed, the oil comes out. The oil that gives light, the oil that gives balm, the oil that gives ingredients for cooking. So many things that the olive is used for, but none of it reaches its potential until it is crushed and the oil comes out. So it was with the Christ. When he was bruised for our iniquities, when he was chastised for our sin, when the punishment that should have come upon us was laid upon him, all the glory of salvation poured out and is released to us and to the nations. So when we go through times of crushing and times of pressure, we reflect back to the one person who should have never had to face that, but for us faced it head on, and in that garden of tears chose the way of the cross, the way of suffering, the way of rejection, but then the way of glorious resurrection, light and life for the world and the healing of the nations.